What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video, not for the Rugby Championship though. This one mixing it up a little bit. World Cup warm-ups are beginning to happen. There's actually been a couple of little games that I haven't really kept track of, like Japan and Samoa and Fiji and that. They've been happening over the last week or so, but this is actually the first one I'm probably going to be able to catch on TV. Scotland versus Italy. It's a replay of a game that, of course, we saw in the Six Nations. We see every year in the Six Nations, but Scotland did win quite comfortably this year in the Six Nations. Now, this one is a little bit weird. I've had to double check this. The kickoff time is at 3:15. It's happening in Murrayfield, and I think you can only watch about an hour of this game before it clashes with the Springboks Argentina game. I don't know why they do that. I don't know why they don't TV schedule the games in a little bit more succinctly so you can watch every game, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we'll have a run through all the teams that have been announced, some good picks, some bad picks, maybe thoughts about some team tactics, and finally, of course, giving a score prediction for this game. If you enjoy the style of video, make sure to drop it a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Help out the small channels on YouTube. We like talking about rugby. Starting out then with Scotland. Scotland had a pretty good Six Nations. You know, they got the win over England. They had a convincing win over Wales. They got the win over Italy. The step between those teams, though, and France and Ireland were a little bit struggling in the Six Nations. And as I'm sure every Scotland supporter is probably aware now, there's an awfully tough pool coming up in the World Cup. So making the most of these World Cup warm-up games will absolutely be essential for Scotland leading into that Pool B chaos that's going to happen. So starting out in the front row, Rory Sutherland, George Turner and Murphy Walker. That's a pretty solid front row, to be fair. A lot of experience with Rory Sutherland there, and George Turner is a very pacey hooker, one of the hookers I really do like coming from Scotland. I think he's a very good player. In the lock department, Sam Skinner in there as vice captain alongside of Scott Cummings. So none of the Gray brothers making a start for this one, but they've got to try and pace their team out. You obviously want to be winning these warm-up games, but you obviously got to avoid injuries as well. So you've got to find that mix and balance of picking players you can utilize your plans, practice a bit for the World Cup, but also avoid, serious injuries, because they've also had big news with people like Stuart Hogg retiring and stuff. So they've got to try and find that fine line. So these are two really nice locks. I think it can work well for them. In the back row, Luke Crosby alongside of Rory Darge getting his captaincy as well. Now, there's a name I feel like I haven't said for a while, but a player I rate very highly in this Scotland team. When you have people like Jamie Ritchie and Hamish Watson, you think, well, you don't really need anyone else going in there at a flanker. Rory Darge is an exceptionally good player. I'm really looking forward to seeing a little bit more from him. And gets to be captain as well. Still a young lad, not particularly high on caps either. So, look forward to see how he gets on in a captaincy role. And then finished off there with Matt Fagerson in that number 8 shirt. And he had a couple of really nice games in the Six Nations. He had one game which I made him in my team of the week because I just thought he was absolutely clinical in that game, and I don't think the Scotland scoreline would have been quite so good had Matt Fagerson not been a part of that one. I think he's a solid player. In the halfback partnership, Ali Price goes in alongside of Ben Healy. Looking forward to see a bit more from Ben Healy. Fly halves for Scotland have always been a little bit on the ropes. Everyone wants to see Finn Russell, but then you've got Blair Kinhorn got in there a little bit. Adam Hastings is popping up every now and again. Ben Healy was coming in as maybe a bit of a second runner, but I do think Ben Healy's quite a good player, so I'm looking forward to see what that dynamic brings to this team. In the centre partnership, Stafford McDowell, if you could have a better Scottish name than that one, and finally Chris Harris in that outside centre. So fighting for the shirt, fair to say. I mean, the centre partnership with Tui Pelotu and Hugh Jones worked really well throughout the entirety of the Six Nations. Chris Harris, a really good player, not getting in the team because Hugh Jones is absolutely crushing it. So Chris Harris will want to make the most of this appearance and really try and stamp his name on that number 13 shirt. And then finally, in the back three, Kyle Steyn on that left wing, Darcy Graham on the right wing, and Ollie Smith in that fullback position. Now, Kyle Steyn got his hat-trick on his debut. I can't even remember if it was against Italy, actually, he got his debut against. He did score a hat-trick in his debut. That was a year or two ago now. And it's been a little bit quiet for me ever since that initial start onto the scene. He sits there, he gets in, he just does his job. But I never sort of leave a game going, wow, Kyle Steyn was the man of the match for me. So hopefully he can step up. It's quite hard to, separate yourself when you've got people like Darcy Graham, who just do unbelievable things on the wing. And you've got Duan van der Merwe with that try against England where he just carves through the whole team. It's very hard to stand out from players like that. He has his own sort of style about it. But taking over the left wing, we normally get to see Cal stay on the right wing is where I'm used to seeing. So we'll see how he gets on that left wing. And Ollie Smith got some big shoes to fill with Stuart Hogg now retiring. They need that new starting fullback who's going to be in there for the majority of the game. So a really good opportunity for him coming into this one. In terms of the replacements, Stuart McInally, Jamie Batty, and Yavin Sebastian, who I think we got to see a little bit in the Six Nations, but I still can't, talk an awful lot about him. I can't really put a face to the name, so I'll be keeping a little bit of an eye out for him in this one. And then in the replacement backs, we have Jamie Dobby, Blair Kinghorn, and Cameron Redpath. Nice to see his name back in this squad. Feels like he's been out for a little while. Looking forward to see Redpath back in. Jamie Dobby is a name I couldn't really place at all. He did apparently get named in the 2021 team for Scotland, but didn't actually get to play and made his debut against Tonga in that autumn series back in 2021 and hasn't played since for Scotland. So this will be his second cap. Hopefully he'll get some game time on the board. A lot of people that were Scottish subscribers were telling me across the Six Nations stuff, Ali Price's performances have been a little bit hit and miss. So maybe looking for some other, scrum half options. Jamie Dobby can step up. Really looking forward to see how he gets on. I don't think this is by any means, the top tier Scotland team you'd see in a World Cup final kicking off. They've gone a bit, sort of 50-50 for me, but I like what they've done. They're going up against Italy. It's a team they probably go in with great confidence they can win. They're also playing at home, and like I sort of said, key injuries to key players this close to the World Cup can be devastating for your tour with such a tough pool. But I think with some of the big names they've still got left in, it shows a good amount of respect to Italy. They're still going to be wanting to utilise some of the tactics they're going to want to bring to the World Cup, and a couple of these lads are probably really looking to stick their hand up to get more involved with the World Cup teams for the big games. Moving on then, talking about Italy. Now, Italy unfortunately came sixth in this year's Six Nations again. A lot of people still not particularly happy with Italy. I actually thought overall the performances were more consistent from them. I mean, they still lost every game. They actually technically lost more games than they had last year. But their actual performances, the amount of points they were losing by was significantly less. They were keeping big teams like France and Ireland under pressure right up towards the end of the game. So they also, of course, had that, that win over Australia not too long ago. They'll be, wanting to get more involved. They'll be looking for more of these sort of tier one snipes along the way, especially if they can get a couple of these warm-up games before the World Cup kicks off. That would give them a really big boost because they have an exceptionally tough pool. It's going to be a really big ask to take on the likes of New Zealand and France in Pool A. But let's see how they get on in this one. So starting out of this front row, Federico Zani goes in alongside of Fiver and Ceccarelli. So, there's some experience across the board here for the front row. Scrummaging, one of the areas Italy love to get involved with. But they do like to mix up their front row and their props quite a little bit. Sometimes the consistency can come back to bite them if they don't, stick with a team and haven't maybe found that starting front row. They love to get involved in things like the driving mauls and get involved in scrums. But, if you keep chopping, changing, for every single game, it can be a little bit hard for these players to get back together again. In the lock department, David Ceci goes in alongside of Zambonin. Hopefully I'm getting the pronunciation sort of correct. That's not a name I know at all. Really looking forward to see how he gets on with Federico Ruzza moving to the flanker position. I don't think I've ever actually seen him play at flanker in an international stage before. Taking the captaincy as well, Federico Ruzza is one of the people that I rate extremely highly in the Italian team. He was in Team of the Weeks, last year and this year. I just think he's an exceptional player. He's sort of a real standout involved in the Italy team. His work rate's incredibly heavy. The amount of tackles he makes compared to when he misses is really good. He's a bit of a nightmare at lineouts. We've seen him get charge downs at box kicks, so he's a nuisance for scrum halves as well. Really, really solid player. So I see him in the team. We'll see how he gets on in that flanker position. He's also alongside Zuliani and Halafihi, who we did get to see a little bit of. I'm looking forward to see more of him in that number 8 shirt. Still missing big names in there, like Negri and Lamaro. But again, Italy are going to be finding their own stuff with, injury worries getting close to the World Cup. Not that the World Cup warm-up games don't matter. They'll still want to come away with a win. They're still sports people. But for me, a World Cup warm-up game, that doesn't actually impact anything. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It won't be your top tier that you're absolutely going to win. If you get the win, fantastic. What a huge bonus for you. But as long as you can practice and get more time on the pitch for some of your lesser cap players, I think you can still come away with a lot of valuable experience in this one. In the halfback partnership, Pedrello, again, another brand new name for me in this Italian team. Nice to know there's so many new Italian players coming in this close to the World Cup for me to get to learn a little bit about. And then Tommaso Allan, a really solid fly half. He's had some fantastic games over the last year, really competing against the likes of Garbisi to get back in this fly half shirt, but nice to see him in there. In the centre partnership, Morisi goes in alongside Menoncello, so a bit more of an experienced centre partnership. There's some new mix-ups in that forwards, but the backs are looking, a little bit more settled, alongside a name I feel like I haven't said for a long time, of Monty Ioane, coming back on the left wing. I was talking about him on stream last week, asking where he was. I feel like we hadn't seen him for such a long time. I think he's been out with his own little injury worries and playing away now, and he's actually managed to get back in. He wants to get back in this Italian squad for the World Cup, so fantastic to see him back in there. Pierre Bruno goes on the right wing, and then Pani on the fullback shirt. Now Bruno, there was a couple of issues for him across the Six Nations. He'll want to redeem his name. I'm thinking back to that Wales game especially. Caught out of position a lot in that backfield, so really want to be working on that. Scotland are another team that will absolutely enjoy getting those kicks over the top of you. They don't have the likes of Finn Russell to do some of the more cheeky kicks and stuff, but there's certainly talented players who want to get little kicks over the top of you. People like Darcy Graham will step back inside of you and make a bit of a nuisance. You've got to be ready. Hopefully Bruno has a good game. And then finally, in the replacements, Marco Manfredi goes in alongside of Fischetti and Alongi. Hopefully I'm going to get that pronunciation correct. Another new name for me. So many new names for me to learn today in this Italian squad. Yakizi also joining the team alongside of Lorenzo Cannone. So, Cannone, again, was absolutely immense for that Italian team in terms of looking back at his stats at the end of the Six Nations. Was right up there with Negri. Not going to be starting this one. Not necessarily a bad idea. I think Halafihi, probably needs a bit more game time. Cannone looked like he was pretty consistent throughout most of the games, so he'll probably be looking to get into that World Cup teams for most of the games. Anyway, your replacement backs then, Alessandro Garbisi in there as your replacement scrum half. De Rey in your 22 shirt, and finally Federico Mori in there as well in your 23 shirt. So 5-3 split. If they're going up against Scotland at home, maybe they could have lent towards a 6-2, but I don't think this is the sort of game where they're going to be wanting to go for 6 driving maul tries. They want to have a bit of time on the ball, try some different set plays, work on their set piece a bit, get a bit of open play, work out your distributing, how you're going to position your teams. You want to be working on a lot of that towards the World Cup. Like I said, the win is not necessarily the most important thing in these games. They'll want to win because it's a sports game, and absolutely these sportsmen will want to win the match. But working on some of those World Cup, variables is going to be one of the biggest things to have a look at. So talking about a score prediction, then what do we think for this one? Both teams haven't necessarily put out their mega starting teams. They're testing the waters a little bit. So this game can maybe open up a little bit more than people expect. I'm going to go for a Scotland win. And I'm going to say Scotland by 12. But there we have it, guys. That's going to be the preview for today. Drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the team along with your score predictions, because I really enjoy seeing them. I have had a look at the Super Brew for the warm-up games. This isn't classed as one, so I haven't done that tournament yet on Super Brew for the Rugby World Cup warm-up games. But this doesn't count. It isn't one for some reason. This is like their own individual game. It's part of the summer series, even though it's like just this one game going on. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's not part of it. But it's going to be the first warm-up game that I get to see. It's going to be on Amazon Prime. I think I've got this one in the UK anyway. And like I said, it's just after 3 o'clock is the kickoff. So if you, unfortunately, you're going to end up with a bit of a choice between this one and the Springboks versus Argentina game. But at least you can get about an hour of the Scotland-Italy game in before you might have to switch channels if you're going to watch that. But if you haven't got Sky and you can't watch the Rugby Championship, hey, we've got some international rugby back on the television screens for you guys. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.